Hey guys, it's Alvin and Jess, and we are
The Most Potato. On today's episode, we'll be discussing A24's latest film, Civil War. There will be spoilers ahead, so if you haven't watched this movie yet, save this episode and come back after watching.
Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you guys enjoy the show.
All right, guys, welcome back to another installment of the Most Potato Podcast.
Woo!
We hope you guys had a good long weekend in America. Most of you guys probably haven't had a good long weekend because most jobs don't have a long weekend for this Patriots Day. I'm pretty sure it's only like in Massachusetts or in some states that we have this holiday.
Because my
I keep forgetting about this one in April.
Yeah, my app was like tax day, and I was just like, really? I was like,
Tax day.
I was like, what the fuck is that? I
But
guess.
it's actually Patriots Day
But then
too.
I looked at the website, and I was like, oh, it's.
I was like, what? I got a Monday off? Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's all I care about.
And if you're not in the Americas, we just hope you have a really good weekend and day in general. Maybe you have more holidays than us.
Maybe
If
you
so,
have 4-day work weeks instead.
if so, we are envious of you.
Very.
And we're about to start a civil war because of
Oh,
that. And then we'll be talking about Civil War today, the A24 film that is making a lot of huge waves with, I guess, critics apparently, because before the movie came out, I've been hearing reviews about like, oh, this is like contender for best movie of the year, and it's like it's a masterpiece. And when I was hearing that shit, when I was hearing that stuff, I was like, you make me very, very, very wary about the movie when you just throw words like that casually, and especially with like a war movie, because I don't know. I love A24. I like the director Alex Garland, but when I see a war movie coming from an American studio, I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm excited, but then I'm also trepidatious about it because a lot of the times it just ends up being military propaganda and it's not really that interesting.
Yeah.
But I was curious about this movie because I am a fan of Alex Garland. You like some Alex Garland movies. You liked Annihilation quite a bit.
Yes.
That was a
Thank
cool
you, Bear.
one. I don't know if you liked Ex Machina. I think you watched that with me, right? I think I made
watched
you.
some of it, and then I was.
Did
just
you like the Oscar Isaac disco part?
No, I
Dancing
think
to
you
Disco?
just like that part. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I did jump on, and I was just like, oh, what is this? What you doing? And
Yeah.
this is interesting.
His career is really interesting. He started off as a novelist, then became a screenwriter. He wrote 28 Days Later with Cillian Murphy.
You still haven't made me watch that one yet.
I thought I watched that with you.
No.
I'm pretty sure you sat down with me for that one.
No.
I'm going to make you watch it then, because
Oh.
that's a good one.
You can't make me do anything I want to do.
And then he became a director. So that's a very inspirational sort of career trajectory, going from a novelist all the way to a movie director. That's pretty cool. So he directed and wrote this movie, and this movie stars a very stellar cast with Kirsten Dunst, Wagner Moura, Kaylee Spaney, who's I haven't seen her before, but apparently she's been in some stuff lately. She's gonna pop in a lot of movies. She's gonna be the lead character in the new Alien movie that's coming in August. So that'll be interesting. Stephen McKinley and Nick Offerman, and then a nice little cameo from Jesse Plemons as well. So this movie really got my attention with all that stuff, despite it being a war movie, and I'm not a fan of war movies generally. Just a quick rundown of the plot. Basically, in Civil War, we're in a dystopian near future in America where civil war has befallen on us as multi-faction military groups fight each other across the country. A small team of journalists races against the clock to reach Washington, D.C. before rebel factions descend upon the White House. So that sounds like a really thrilling action adventure sort of movie, but the movie's far from that. It's really more of like an analysis or like a journey with this small ragtag team of journalists who are just trying to document what's going on. And the movie basically tries to set this sort of apolitical position where the characters are kind of in a neutral party. They're not really expressing opinions of any kind in terms of politics, because the movie is very intentional of just trying to hide all the reasons why the Civil War broke out in the first place. None of the characters really talk about it, which is really bizarre to me, because I feel like this movie is like a road trip. Like they're in a van for days at a time trying to get to this place to get the shots that they need. And not once do they have a political conversation in the car, and I think that's wild.
I mean, yes, it definitely was wild, and I kept, but the thing is, I felt like what was going on with like the main characters, like the four main characters that we were following, and just how they were handling the situation and what was driving them was honestly enough to distract me from the fact that I have no idea what the fuck is going on in this, like, you know,
it keeps you engaged enough.
Yeah, I was like, I wanted to know. I was just like, well, why the fuck is there a civil war? Like, what's going on? What are the territories? Because there are different territories that are split apart, and you don't know who you're gonna come across. There are roadblocks everywhere. And I kept jumping out of it where a moment is like, wait, why are we mad about this? Why don't we trust this? What's going on? Yeah. But that was kind of in the back of my head. But I guess it was like after we like left the movie, and I was just like, okay, so Alvin, please tell me what the fuck is going on and why there's a civil war. And
I wish I could tell you.
I know. And I was just like, okay. I was like, it didn't bother me so much, but I definitely have questions, especially how like when we left the theater, I felt unsettled and scared and disgusted. And
you actually asked me if I was okay because we both went to the bathroom, and then I was waiting for you, and then you came up to me, and I didn't notice you were coming up to me, and you were like, Alvin, are you okay?
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm still distilling from what I just watched.
I'm like, I don't feel like this was like some great masterpiece thing. I think it just it hits close to home, the thought of, you know, something like this, like it could be, and not just in America, and anywhere in the world, people probably, you know, you see this thing and it could just happen. So I was really unsettled after the movie, but I guess we'll get into that, but when we talk about it, I just like, I want to focus on like, I feel like the good job the actors did with each character and how they move. Because honestly, the Civil War breaking out or whatever's going on in that world honestly isn't that important for the film. For me, it wasn't like something that was like, I need to know the story of like why the country's like this. It was really about these characters and who they were as a person, which I love so much. That's what sucked me in, and that's what I thought. I thought the performances were amazing.
That's good to know, because I feel the total opposite of you. I felt like I needed to know what the fuck was going on politically.
Yeah.
But I will agree with you that the acting was fucking superb. Like, I got sucked into the characters, in their minds, in their experiences. Everyone does a fantastic job. I haven't seen a lot of movies with Kirsten Dunst in it. Like, I hate to say that my biggest exposure of her was the Spider-Man trilogy movies, but I've seen her in other stuff, like in indie films specifically. But this is like the first time where she really stood out to me, and like her performance is burned into my memory. She does a wonderful job with her character as this very stoic person who's been obviously scarred by war and is trying to be numb to everything that she witnesses. And each character is very unique in their own ways. And I think all the actors brought out the best in their roles, even though you don't get to learn that much about these characters.
Yeah.
They're fairly thin characters. They're not fully fleshed out, but the way that they carry themselves, you feel invested in what's going on with them, and you care about what's happening to them. The cinematography is freaking gorgeous, too. I'm glad we watched this in the Dolby projection.
Yes.
I really like Dolby, and I would go to IMAX if the freaking IMAX wasn't always trying to make you go deaf with the volume.
I hate that. That makes me so sick.
The Dolby's already mad loud, but it's I can handle that. But IMAX is like, you need earplugs. And I've worked at House of Blues, like near the stage, and there were a lot of times where I didn't need earplugs. And the fact that the theater was louder than House of Blues is fucking insane.
Ew.
But cinematography is gorgeous. It's got like this very full picture that just makes you like pulled into the world. It's like a full screen. It's not widescreen, which I really liked. I think there was a smart move to make it like a full screen presentation, because every time an explosion or a gunfight happened, you felt like you were in there. And I think that's part of why I felt low-key traumatized at the end of the movie. It's because I felt like I was in that shit. I didn't feel like I was a passerby just watching.
That's true.
So I think the presentation also really helped with like bringing you into this world. And the movie knew when to toy with your emotions. Alex Garland knew how to make you feel so tense that you feel like you could break, and then suddenly just undercut it with a joke or a humorous moment. Because there is quite a bit of humor with the characters, which I appreciated.
Yeah.
So there's like a really nice balance with the ups and downs of how the movie makes you feel. And again, we'll get into more details about like the lack of world building, but that was a distraction for me. But I kept getting pulled into what the characters were doing and saying.
Yeah.
That sometimes I was forgetting about like the lack of explanation of what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So the movie does a really good job with making you feel invested emotionally. It's hard for me to say that I was entertained because again, I just felt like a lot of dread and I felt sick.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the best thing to feel if you're watching like a war movie. You shouldn't really feel like this should be glorified.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't feel thrilled and pumped and like, grr, America.
Yeah.
That's the last thing I'd want to feel.
And
so
if
I guess.
You are, ew.
Yeah. Yeah. Jesse Plemons' characters would like to speak with you on what kind of American you are.
Oh my God. He makes me everything he's in, he just makes me uncomfortable. Like whether he's like not a bad guy or not. Like when he was in, I think he was in Power of the Dog. Wasn't he in that too? Kirsten
That sounds
Dunst was
familiar.
in there with Doctor Strange. What's the
Benedict Cumberbatch. Yeah.
That was one of the Oscar nominees from like 2020 or 2021. One of those.
Is that Western movie? The Power of the Dog? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Bronco Henry.
Yes, you and your Bronco fucking Henry. Anyways, I think he was in that. Breaking Bad, obviously. That was
my
always
first
call
exposure.
him Todd.
Yeah,
I just call him Todd because I'm just like, what the fuck, Todd? And then I think Love and Debt with Elizabeth Olsen.
Yeah.
You know that he's uncomfortable, but he's good.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's just like
he knows how to bleed into his roles, man.
So when I saw that clip of him, he's like, "What kind of?" I was like, "Todd, no."
That was kind of the selling point in the trailer. Yeah,
I would have definitely got shot that day.
For real.
Oh my God! But yeah, no, the I don't know. It's just like I get what you're saying too. Like it's just you feel uncomfortable. It feels too real. Like this dread. It wasn't. I was not like hyped in any. I was just like I was on edge and like adrenaline and just like.
I actually jumped a few times, mainly because of the sound design, which is another thing I wanted to point out. The sound design is really good, and I've been hearing about that with other reviews, and it immerses you in that world. Sometimes when there was a gunshot, it felt so startling for me. I thought it was in the room itself.
Yeah.
And then I would jump, and I can't remember the last time I jumped at like a sound like that. So. And then it plays with sound very interestingly when, you'll get to hear like the gunfire and the intensity, but then when something really awful happens and there's death involved, it just goes dead silent.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of times where that happens, and the only time you hear noise during those moments is when you hear the click of the shutter of the camera. When somebody's taking a photo of somebody's, burning corpse or anything like that, which again, just... He knew how to make you feel haunted by this movie in different ways.
Yeah.
And that's like, I got to give props to the director for that, because he really knew how to play with your emotions with like the characters, the visuals, the sound. It was really just like a roller coaster of emotions for me.
Yeah. Especially because like with the characters that we have, so you have Kirsten Dunst as Lee. She's like
She's a veteran photographer.
Yeah, she's
been around.
Veteran photographer. She's been around. She's seen so many things. She has like a lot of trauma. There's like a lot of flashbacks.
You see it in her brows, like just in her eyes. You forget the flashbacks. If you delete the flashbacks,
that's true.
You'll see the memes of like a soldier looking so like decrepit in the face, and then you just see like visuals of like war breaking out in the background.
Yeah,
that's what she'd be looking at when she's on screen.
And she does such a good job. I'm like, this is like I feel like my first introduction to Kirsten Dunst was like Bring It On. Like she's like a cheerleader, and
she's come a long way from that.
When the first movie I've seen when she was like a little kid was like Interview with the Vampire and stuff. And she's just like cute, and I'm just like, yeah, this is. But I was like, wow, it's like she really looks intense here. Like she's really like, I'm like, damn, what have you been through? Like, what have you seen? And then who do we have? We have Jesse. You said Kaylee.
Yes, Kaylee Spaney plays Jesse, who is the new freshman in the world of political journalism.
And I can't stand her. She got
I
on
can't
my
either,
nerves.
but I also get the naivety of the character.
Exactly, I get it, because I guess how like the movie starts, there's like some protesting going on, and you know
the New York
Lee
situation
is there, and then what's the actor for Joel.
For
no,
Joel?
Joel. His name is Joel.
Wagner Moura.
Wagner Moura. He was he played Escobar in Narcos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they were at this like, protest. Then you get introduced to Jessie. She's new, young, and she's like right in the middle of things, and she basically gets like hit in the face by like one of the police officers that are like trying to hold people back. She
gets knocked down.
And I think they were trying to get water too, so that was what's going on. And then I was just like, something bad's gonna happen.
You could just feel it.
You could just feel it, just the dread. And I was just like, something is gonna happen, and I don't know, because I didn't go into this like, I just knew. I was like, we're gonna go see Civil War. I'm like, what's that?
Yeah, you went into it so blind.
So blind. And so, but that feeling watching that scene where everybody's pushing back, and I was just like, I don't think it's gonna be like police just start shooting. I don't think it's gonna be that. Next thing you know, like this fucking just like bomb just drops on these people and blows up the whole scene.
Somebody suicide bombs. Yeah, and it was funny because I kind of knew that was coming. Only because there was a random shot of a woman looking very intensely at the crowd.
I did.
It was a very so it was a very quick shot. If you obviously probably wouldn't think too much on it because you think, okay, this is just a random establishing shot.
Yeah.
But the way she looked like she was like a woman on a mission. And then when she had that American flag, I was just like, oh, I think she's gonna just blow everyone away with something.
Like, can we just get a glass of water? Like, why? Like, that was another thing. It's just like, well, why did she do this? What was the purpose? That's another.
You could not know. You could guess.
Know. Yeah. So that was like another thing. And Lee saves Jessie from
getting hit
basically and stuff. And then it moves on to a scene, and you see all the bodies, and then Lee starts taking pictures, and Jessie's just rattled and scared. And I like that you're going to see throughout the movie, she gets used to it. She slowly evolves, and she begins to get used to it, because Lee's just like, this is what we do. If you want to be in this is what you do. You're going to see a whole bunch of shit, and you got to be there to capture it. Yeah. And I that's why, like, Jessie, she's annoying because she's young and naive, but seeing her evolve to the point where I'm just like, damn, like
the whole 180.
Yeah, she really pulls him by the end of the movie, and I was just like, fuck.
Yeah.
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 But basically Lee says to her, was this before? No, this was after. Was this after the bombing that happened, where they were just like, she's like, would you take a picture of my corpse or whatever, or me dying?
That's way after. Yeah, that's after the bombing. After? Yeah.
Okay, because do you want to talk about that?
What did you want to talk about with that scene specifically?
Basically Jessie evolving, because we see basically a scene happens where, Jessie's just like, well, if I was dying or if I died, would you take a picture of me? Like,
I think, does this conversation take place at the gas station that they stop at? Or
maybe,
is that?
I feel like it was before that, but it could have been around that time.
Yeah.
It's still pretty early in the movie.
Yes.
And then Lee's just like, yeah, what do you think? Of course I'm going to take the shot.
Yeah.
And
very cold and hard.
Yeah.
And then Jessie just has to accept that.
It. Yeah. And it wasn't like,
never meet your heroes.
It was it was like, it was cold, but I also like kind of understood it. And I was
it was like, very matter of fact. That's like the world that they established.
So I was just like, okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and then that further fleshes out the dynamic between Jessie and Lee, because Lee is trying to keep this woman at a distance. She initially doesn't want this young woman to join them on this trip, because Sammy also wants to join on this trip, who's their mentor, who's the oldest generation of photojournalists. So they end up building a team together of Joel, Lee, Sammy, and Jessie. Lee does not want this baby-faced child, young adult person in the team, because she doesn't want to be emotionally and physically responsible for somebody who's so fresh, who's so full of raw emotion, because that's also a threat to Lee being vulnerable again. She's you can tell that her cracks are starting to break down throughout the movie. The more that she interacts with Jessie, the more that she interacts with her and tries to mentor her, the more she starts caring, and the more she starts becoming vulnerable and more human again, because she keeps a hard exterior because she's trying to be neutral in this world.
Yeah.
So it was really fascinating to watch their relationship and their dynamic sort of change and blossom and mutate, because these two characters are going in opposite directions, right? We're seeing Jessie going from like this very freshman person not knowing what to do to slowly progressing to being sort of adept in the field to finally feeling like she's thriving in the field. And then on the opposite end, we have Lee, who's already seasoned, already hardened. By the middle point, she starts to care. By the end, she is not able to take on this job anymore, which we can get into later on. But it was fascinating seeing how their interaction just ends up in putting them in opposite directions of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So I really liked seeing that. And then there was like a moment at the gas station. I want to go back to that because this is where they first posed the question of like, what is journalism supposed to be?
Mm-hmm.
And what is it? Lee establishes that it's supposed to be, neutral. You're not supposed to take a side because the guy at the gas station shows Jesse these hanging bodies that are still alive. And he's asking her, what you tell me, what should I do with these guys? Should I kill them? What do I do? And she's too stunned to answer the question because she just doesn't want it to end badly either way, no matter what she chooses.
Mm-hmm.
So she's the one that asks the question of like, I don't know, should I have said something when they're driving away from the gas station? Because these dudes are fucking creeps. Like, I couldn't even understand what their political motivation was then either, because they're over here holding freaking guns ready for whoever's stopping by.
Yeah.
They're over here charging 300 Canadian bucks for some gas, which is wild. And then they got some hanging bodies in the back. So they never clarify what side they're on. They're obviously very right wing. They looked like they have that energy.
Like you have to, like, as these characters go through the movie, you have to know, like, just it's lawless. Everything's like, you have to remember that. So,
and everything's ambiguous.
Yeah, so you don't know, because when they pulled up to the before they even pulled up, they were driving by and they're just like, oh, we need gas, because we need to get further, and they're just like, should we stop? They were debating, and they're just like, well, better to stop now than to run out of gas.
That's what I was saying the whole time. I'm like, when's the next time you're gonna get an opportunity for anything?
And I was just like, I mean, if those guys wanted to, they could have just started shooting right off the bat, but they allowed them to pull up, they allowed them to get out. They just walked over with their guns.
Very tense moment.
Yeah, very, very tense.
Every interaction with other people outside the group is just tension because you just don't know what they're up to.
Exactly.
So I like that Jesse brought up that question, but it just gets answered so easily by Lee, and then it never really gets challenged the rest of the movie because I find it very hard to believe that there would be a neutral journalism like during a modern civil war when we don't even have neutral journalism today.
Yeah.
Like they even mentioned like Sammy works for the New York Times. Like they're one of the most biased companies ever because they're a huge company. Mm-hmm. They're bought by like political motivations, just like any other like publishing company in America. So I couldn't buy into the fact that maybe they themselves could be neutral, but like their work, once they send out the photos and shit,
that's what I was gonna say.
That just like gets filtered out.
They can be neutral, but it's just like if you're selling your photos to whoever, they could do whatever they want.
That goes to a writer, and then
like
that goes
Spider-Man.
to an approver. Give me pictures of Spider-Man. He's a menace.
A menace, exactly. So it's just like maybe I don't know. It was hard to say whether this group was neutral, especially because we didn't know what was going on, because the movie starts with like the president practicing some speech that he's going to give to the nation or whatever.
Some propaganda monologue.
Yeah, and then, before this group, like, gets together and stuff, Lee and Joel, they're just like, yeah, we're going to D.C. That's what they're telling Sammy. Sammy's like, okay, I'll come. Mm-hmm. And there's like some throughout the movie scenes where Sammy's like questioning, like, Joel, like, are these the questions you're going to ask the president? Like, what does that mean? How are you going to, execute this question? Yada, yada, yada. Yeah. And like, even when we were hearing those things, I still had no idea, like, why do they want to interview the president? What did he do, or what did so-and-so do? Like, what's going on? Yeah. But for me, it felt like they were just like, we're gonna be the ones to do it. It was it's like a rat race to, who's going to get to the president first.
And get the biggest scoop.
Yeah, because I don't feel like they didn't care whether the president lived or died. Like, I never got the impression that they were just like, we have to get there to like save him, or
that's not the truth. They're fucking journalists. They're not going to save anybody.
So they're like, we have to get the truth out or something like that. It never felt like that. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm not going to worry about it. I just want to see if they get there in one piece,
Yeah. Yeah, and I just wish there was more of a back and forth of the philosophies between Jesse and Lee, just because I think there should have been more pushback from Jesse about, maybe we should be taking a side with our journalism and still tell the truth. It's just because when I think about this stuff with journalism, I think about like the main thing going on in the world right now is with Palestine. Like, look at the journalists that we've lost over there who, yes, they're very biased about their country because they're being overtaken by a group of people that don't belong there. And it's like, you can still tell the truth while being biased.
Yeah.
Like, they would not be systematically getting, eliminated if they weren't telling something that was going to compromise a superpower like Israel.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't see how neutrality really functions in journalism when I don't even see that happening today. It hasn't been neutral for like, at least in America, not like 100 years. Like, as soon as corporations existed and like they started buying up media and stuff, like it's always like, is it liberal? Is it like Republican? It's never fully just like, we're here to tell the truth of both sides.
Yeah.
It's just never been that way, at least in my existence in this country. So for them to just kind of like make us buy into that in this world, I just kept getting distracted by that. I wanted to like put that in the back of my mind, but then it just kept like nagging me.
Yeah.
So I was just like, no, I think there should be way more pushback from Jessie, especially because you've got a young generation. Like she looked like she could be like Gen Z, like an older gen, like an older Zoomer.
20 or 21?
Yeah, that would be like Gen Z.
Yeah, so that's how,
Yeah, because I don't think she's a millennial unless she's like well into like her late 20s or early 30s.
This is a future, so yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah. So she's in that generation where they easily question everything that we've grown up with.
Yeah.
So it would have been more interesting to see two characters from two totally different generations, battle it out with their philosophies. But the movie wasn't really interested in doing that. So I was like, I kind of had to like swallow that every time.
Yeah, I think it's because Jessie was just like, Lee's her idol, like kind of, and like she's like looking up to her. She wants to be like her.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like it was ever a matter of pushing back on her. There were moments that they had, like when they came across that town, that seemed like it was like living in a bubble, basically. Like they weren't paying attention to what was going on in the rest of the country.
Oh yeah.
And they just like they were like literally when they drove through the town, they were just like, do they not know what the fuck is going on?
Joel literally says, did we drive through a time portal?
Yeah, basically.
It basically looked like today, like our reality in the US where nothing's going on
exactly
in terms of a war.
So that moment they stop at like this clothing store, they go in and they ask the girl behind the counter who's just reading a book and going about like not paying attention,
whack ass customer service.
They were just like, you do realize that there's a civil war? And she's like, yeah, we're choosing to stay out of it, and we're just we're not in that. That's basically how she responded. So how else do you live? You're going to be locked in your house the whole time? Yeah, basically. But, there's that moment where Lee tries on a dress, like Jessie tells her to try on a dress.
That was a nice moment.
It was a really nice moment. And I felt like we didn't need Jessie to be pushing back on like Lee and, trying to change her or anything like that. I think Jessie just being herself, being naive, and the way she sees the world was like more than enough, because Lee already wanted to kind of like protect her. She didn't want her to come. She comes and she's clearly looking out for her. Like when they got out of the car at the gas station and Joel just let Jessie walk away to go look at something. I'm just like, there are like 3 or 4 guys here with guns. We don't know how to move or how they'll move.
Yeah.
And you just let her go. So Lee goes and checks on her, and that's when they have that little conversation in front of those bodies that are hanging there. But I think those are the moments that are like the pushback that maybe you wanted, that were just subtle, because the pushback is more Lee breaking down, like changing,
Maybe. I don't think so, because I get what you're saying, but I think that's more of like those interactions finally humanizing Lee, but it never bleeds into like her philosophy of journalism. We never once see that Lee decides, okay, journalism can't be neutral, I have to take a side. It just becomes more of her changing into like finally being in touch with her emotions again and letting herself feel, letting herself care about other people.
I think that's a part of it as well too.
I think so, but
because for you being neutral, you're not letting your emotions get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
You can't let them get in the way. You have to get in there, get the shot, regardless of what side is right, what side is wrong, whatever it is that you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's what Lee is. That's who she's been like for a really, really long time. Because spoiler, Sammy, the old man with the cane, dies. So she takes a photo of Sammy.
That's right. I was just thinking
dead.
that.
And this goes back to the conversation that Jesse and Lee had earlier, where Jesse's like, "Would you take a photo of me dying or me dead or whatever?" And Lee's like, "Yeah, I would."
Mm-hmm.
When we'll get to the part where why Sammy dies, but Sammy dies, and it's like a really sad scene, totally unexpected, but kind of expected because I'm just like, you guys brought an old man with a cane. Like running through the country,
and
trying
Lee
to,
takes his picture of
Lee
his
takes
body.
his picture, but then she's going through her camera through the pictures, and she deletes it.
Yeah, which is that is a shift.
That is a shift because I'm just like, if she was neutral, she would have kept the photo.
That's true.
Sold the photo, be like, oh, because he seems to be like he's known or something like that. I don't know. Maybe someone knows him. It could have been used for something. And
he would have been well known because he's been in the business a long time.
Exactly. So
it would have got a lot of attention.
She deletes it, and in that moment, I was just like, "Wow!" It's like, is she really gonna delete it? Like, why wouldn't she keep that? Like, isn't this is what she does? And
I want pictures of Spider-Man, damn it.
Basically, so I that's why I feel like without it being like, oh yeah, well you have to pick a side, Lee. I feel like her changing her emotions, coming back, her not being able to be neutral about how she feels towards someone like Jesse, I think that's more than enough,
That's fair.
I
could see that.
That's how I felt about it.
I think that makes sense. I think that's a good argument. And yeah, as soon as you were mentioning that about Sammy's death, I was just like, oh wait, that's right. She actually does have a shift in kind of like her philosophy. Because yeah, you are right about that. I think I'm just more upset about her outcome later in the movie, which we'll get into fairly soon.
That's also a part of her shift as well, too.
Because even earlier in the movie, when they're like the night before they entered this big shootout that's happening in this abandoned building, when they're in a parking lot, Lee is having an existential crisis about her career. She's talking to Sammy, her mentor, about, is it even worth being a journalist anymore? Because I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I don't know if this work is getting out and changing anything and providing information. There's like we see like this sort of a visual montage of her taking photojournalism in other countries. It looks like she's like in some African country where like a huge conflict is breaking out.
Oh yeah.
And she mentions like, I've been to all these places to take photos, to send a message to, home, to tell them and remind them, not to do that here. And then look where we're at, which I kind of had a problem with that line. Like I like what they were trying to do there, but it's also like, well, I mean, America's like responsible for like 98% of the suffering of the world, along with other European nations. So it's like, we've been doing it. It's just we've been doing it to other people.
Exactly.
So, and there's no guarantee that we won't ever go back into a civil war again. We've already done that once in our history. So I thought that line was kind of funny, but I appreciated the sentiment that the character had. She was going through a crisis. So that was another moment of her sort of shifting perspective on the purpose of journalism and the function of it, and I guess questioning it if it should actually be neutral or not. So I guess that's another moment that I just remembered too while you were bringing up your point. And that was a really good moment as well. I like that they take moments of like actually pondering, even if it doesn't get to the conclusion that I'm satisfied with. They at least have characters wrestling with their internal worlds about their jobs. Because some other characters just don't really seem to care about the validity of being like neutral. Because Joel, he seems to just relish in this world. Like he literally, in that same scene, he literally says, wow, man, that gunfire is just getting me hard right now. So like right away, I'm just like, all right, this guy's a little like a cuckoo, and maybe he thrives in this world a little bit better.
Yeah,
because he's not even a photojournalist; he's like an interviewer journalist. And not once does he interview anybody in the movie.
Yeah,
I know. Like when I was reflecting on the movie, I'm like, Sammy and Joel, they don't really do anything on this road trip. I mean, I know Sammy's trying to get to Virginia because he wants to be on the front lines for that.
Yeah,
but it was just funny to see how Joel doesn't ever really interview. He just stands with the photographers when a fight happens, when a gunfight happens.
And just waves his press badge. He's like, we're pressed.
That's another thing that fucking bothered me. The press badge doesn't protect anybody in this country or anywhere else.
He held on to that shit faithfully. Anytime
he thought that shit was a shield.
He really thought it. He really
I mean, it worked. It worked throughout the whole movie. Not once.
Not for his two friends.
Yeah. No. Maybe we should just get into that point. Yeah, let's get into that point. So we mentioned Sammy's death. Yes. And I wish we can get into more how lovable Sammy is, but just take our word on it. If you haven't seen the movie, what's the actor's name? Stephen McKinley. He does a fantastic job with this role as Sammy. He really does play like this very seasoned person who he's kind of like a fine balance between Lee and Jesse, where he knows when to be objective, but he also knows when to like be empathetic towards somebody. When Lee goes really hard on Jesse, like just scolding her about a mistake that she makes.
Leave that baby alone.
Basically. He's the black uncle of the van. He's a really cool character. I really appreciated him. So his main goal is to get to Virginia because he wants to take photos there of what's going on in Virginia. And then they get caught up. Oh, God, this is so terrible. They get caught up in this sort of I don't know what to describe that. They get caught up with these two creepy guys, just like already killed a bunch of bodies. Yeah. Killed a bunch of people, and they're dumping these bodies into the ground with a giant like truck.
Yeah, dump truck.
Yeah, because they get distracted on the road. Jesse and one other reporter that they run into, who they're friends with, they end up getting captured by this white nationalist dude played by Jesse Plemons. He's a nameless character. And there's a really tense back and forth with the white supremacist guy and the journalist. Yeah. Like just the decision process of Lee and Joel and Sammy seeing their friends at a distance being held at gunpoint while they're kneeling. Yeah. They're over here discussing like, what the fuck do we do? And Lee's just like, well, I'm going to have to go get her. Like, I just can't live. I can't continue.
I'm like, Lee, you better take the photo and let's go. Like, get your ass back in the car.
Even Sammy at that point was being objective and being like, listen, everything in me right now is screaming death here. We're not going to make it out of this. If we go in there, we need to go. Exactly. As much as he cared about Jesse, he was also willing to let her go along with the member of the Hong Kong press. Yeah. And it was just like, I couldn't argue with him. I couldn't argue with anybody.
Even if I was just being neutral because I was like, this means death, I'm just like, this is going to teach Jesse's ass a lesson, because the whole reason why we're in this is because the characters we saw them run into Tony, that's Joel's friend, and they look like they were being followed. So Joel and the group, they're driving in the car, and then there's this truck behind them that's just coming up hard, and I'm just like, what is going on?
It looked very threatening.
I was just like, oh my God, this
menacingly.
I was like, something's gonna happen, but it turns out to be a friend. Tony, while the cars are driving side by side, jumps into their car, and then Jesse's just like, I'm gonna do it too, and she gets in the car with his friend, another journalist. Yeah, and then they drive off and they disappear, and then once Joel and the group come up against their car, they're just like, wait, why is the car empty? What's going on?
Yeah, doors wide open.
That's when they find that, and that's the scene Alvin's talking about, is like where Lee and Sammy, they're just like, okay, we gotta go get her, or no, we gotta leave. Yeah. And I'm just like, fucking Jesse, like, I get it, you're new, your season, but you've been scared and timid this whole time, and then you decide to just take off in a car with someone you don't know. And I'm like, now look where we are. And it was just like really frustrating, because it's like you want her to like kind of enjoy life and like, because
but you gotta be smart about this shit, man. You gotta be smart
about it. And it was like really frustrating and
really the driver's no different. He was an asshole.
Yeah, and I was just like, a dickhead. Great. So then, like you said, we see them at a distance, kneeling down. You have these two random guys held, who are like burying bodies, and it's like really tense. And then Joel's just like, "We got our pass. We're gonna go."
this is my police badge.
Basically,
don't listen to us.
I was like, Joel.
So they make the executive decision to approach this fucking psychotic man. Yeah. And shit's going sideways real fast. Like, oh my God. Lee basically abandons all her coldness to try to save this girl.
Yeah.
And I don't blame her. I don't blame Sammy for being like, let's go the other way. But they decide he stays back because they literally tell him like, you're old and you got a broken leg. Just stay back here.
He's like, you ain't gotta tell me twice. Yeah, but then Todd, he's unnamed character, but we're gonna call him Todd. He looks like a Todd.
I mean, Todd is also a white supremacist in Breaking Bad. He's got a Nazi uncle.
Yes. So Todd, he basically asked me, he's just like, well, what kind of American you are? So you have like Jesse.
Every white man's favorite question. What does that even mean? What kind of American? Like you're asking me like I'm some type of new flavored Dorito. Well, what kind of Dorito are you? I'm fucking Cool Ranch, bitch.
Oh, yeah, that's the best one. But yeah, and then Jesse, was it that Jesse answered first, or was it Lee and Joel were just like, Lee was just like, oh, Colorado? Or he asked
Joel answers first. He says that he's from Florida.
Yeah.
And I just thought that Jesse Plemons was going to shoot him just for his damn accent.
Yeah.
Because like, yeah, you're from Florida, but you're from somewhere else too. That's not America. Right? And then Lee answers that she's from Colorado, right? Mm-hmm. And then I forget the order of events.
Yeah, I feel like it was
because
Jesse
Jesse answers. She says Missouri, and then Jesse Plemons asks her a trivia question about Missouri. She can't answer it, but he's just like, I'll take the answer because you're a white woman, clearly. And you know what? Missouri, that's what I'm talking about. America. Basically. Colorado, that's what I'm talking about. American.
Yeah.
I'm just like, whatever that means to you, you fucking nutcase. And then it gets to the point where he shoots one of the Hong Kong press members, the one that's kneeling. He shoots him first.
Yeah.
I forget why. I think he tries to ask him the same question and he doesn't answer and he just shoots him immediately.
Yeah, it was just, I feel like he just kind of looked at him and was just like, well, I know where you're from or whatever.
Yeah, he just looked. I don't think he even asked the question. And then he looks at the other remaining Asian member.
It was because Joel was just like, yeah, we're press or whatever and stuff. Joel was trying to like talk him down and just like get him distracted and be like, yeah, we're all good. And then he's like, oh, so this is your friend. Yeah. And then he just shoots that guy who's kneeling next to Jesse. So he's dead. So then Tony, he's in the back just like crying and like hyperventilating. He's scared shitless. Like
he can almost not answer the question.
Yeah, eventually Todd asks him, he's just like, well, what kind of American you are, like where are you from and stuff, and then he's just like, Hong Kong. I don't
know if he was stupid or if he was that prideful to answer Hong Kong instead of just saying like, bitch, I'm from Boulder fucking Colorado too.
Yeah.
I'm from Montana.
Because if he would have said like Massachusetts, I'm pretty sure, because that's what I said to
you. He would have had question marks for Massachusetts. I'm like, he'd be like, too educational. Maybe I should shoot him.
Yeah, because I was just like, what happens if you say Massachusetts? I felt like you would have got shot.
It would be a gamble.
Yeah.
It would be a gamble. That's why I said just fucking say like Montana, say Idaho, Ohio,
he could have
Utah.
said Florida too. Like I'm just like, nasty ass Florida. And I was
but I mean, he's so fucking riled up. He couldn't think straight.
Yeah, he couldn't.
I think he could only be honest.
And then he got shot instantly.
And that was fucking horrifying to watch. That was disgusting. I was like, all right, I clearly know what political side you're on here.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
you're definitely
Todd.
You're a MAGA hat dude. Yeah, and then that moment, that whole scene shakes everybody to their core. I think everybody makes a dramatic shift when they move forward. Again, you mentioned earlier when they get to when they finally make it to Virginia and they see that the American the government soldiers are there, but they're leaving because they're giving up against the Western forces.
Yeah.
Lee decides to delete the photo that she took of Sammy's body because Sammy ends up saving the crew by driving into Jesse Plemons' character,
running him
over with the van,
knocking Jesse into like the pit of dead bodies, which was really it was like a really uncomfortable scene, like just to see the bodies and then her crawling out of the pit. Then Joel lifts her out and then they just get in the car and they take off. But the guy that was with the Todd character, there was another guy. He gets up and he starts shooting at the car as they drive away, and that's basically how Sammy dies. Is that he gets hit? Yeah, he drives them as far as he can, and then he's like, I can't drive anymore. And then they're like, he's been hit. By the time they make it to that base,
he's dead already. Yeah. So Lee takes the photo. She abandons the photo. Something's really changed in her. Joel becomes more desperate than ever for his work to be meaningful because he's not. You see a shot of him grieving which I actually really like that shot. It's very silent again. There's like, I think there's like some ambient music playing, and he's just screaming his lungs out, and you don't hear his voice because he's heartbroken about Sammy, but he's also heartbroken about the situation in Virginia where he learned that the United States government military, they're giving up. And he's learning that they have to definitely make it to D.C. soon because the president could be killed at any moment. And if he loses that shot, then he feels like he's gone through all this shit for nothing. We see that Jessie is beyond traumatized. She's shaking to her core. Like, prior to making it to Virginia, we see her like just puke on herself. But later on in the scene, when she's talking with Lee, she mentions this interesting line where she says she's never felt more alive after going through all this shit. Which it sounded kind of cryptic. And we see later on what she means by that when they make it to DC. So that cool down moment was really nice for them to sort of flesh out where the characters' mentalities are at, because we're close to the end of the movie at this point. We're at the climax where now they really have to get to DC as soon as possible, because any moment the president could be killed. Joel doesn't get his interview with the president. It's pointless to go there if that doesn't work out. So they finally make it to DC, and this huge battle is breaking out. So they're now following the Western Forces, which is Florida and Texas's military front, which I still don't understand how the fuck California and Texas is overtaking a huge chunk of military with a bunch of territory across the United States. Because I saw the map, and the Loyalist group has way more territory. I don't understand how California and Texas has more soldiers, more firepower than the president's men.
I don't know. It's like, is Texas and California just like that big? Like, it doesn't like.
I mean, meanwhile, there's like the random Florida unit that we don't really come across, and then there's like the New People's Army that we also don't really come across.
Florida, they're an alliance. They're an alliance with the Western Force. Is that what?
I have no idea.
Because
I think they're fighting other people too.
Because they have to.
Anyone that has their own unique name, they're an individual group that's fighting everyone else.
Oh,
so I don't think they're allied.
The group starts off in New York and they're driving through. They have to drive through the Florida Alliance area. Well, I don't even know. Don't even ask me, y'all. I'm bad.
This is my main problem with the world.
DC is. I know where DC is, but don't.
This is my
me.
problem with the world building. It's so shaky and messy. It's just like it doesn't make sense who we're following. But at the end of this movie, the journalists are following the Western Forces, which is California and Texas's team
to get into
the White House. And it's a really intense like shootout. Like every bullet, you hear it, you feel it in your chest. Like I felt like at any moment, any of the characters could have gone.
I know they had to keep snatching Jessie back because I'm like, can you like hide behind this wall? Like
that was the part with that huge shift in her personality. After she said, "I've never felt more alive," she just turns into fucking Jake Gyllenhaal and Nightcrawler. Like she is hungry. Her and Joel become savages for photos. They become more and more indifferent to what's going on around them. And you see that Lee is starting to have PTSD symptoms. She's hyperventilating and not taking any photos.
Joel literally has to drag her to the next point because the soldiers are just like, follow us, like stick with us. You go when I go and stuff. And she just can't move. So he's dragging her, which I was surprised because I'm just like, he's so like ready to get in there and see if the president's still alive. I'm surprised he didn't just leave her behind.
You know? Exactly. I mean, they kind of do, at least philosophically speaking, because when they make it into the White House building, again, really intense moments. There's more shootouts between the Secret Service and the Western Forces. God, we see that at one point the press secretary is trying to negotiate with the Western Forces, saying, "Well, we'll let you see the president if you give us guarantee that you can get us out." And then they take a shot at her. And the movie stops on a photo that Jessie takes, like, of the secretary woman midway falling down after taking a hit in the head. And that was, like, one of the most disturbing shots that I've seen. So you just see, like, more and more, like, the soldiers are getting more, like, animosity. Even the journalists are getting more animosity with, like, the types of photos that they're taking. Jessie risks her life to get a shot in the hallway and almost gets fucking killed. And Lee steps in and takes bullets for this girl.
And as Lee is falling, Jesse's taking her photo.
Until her body falls next to her. And now once does she look at her?
Yeah.
She just sort of like is in shock for a moment after taking the photos. And then she gets up and then leaves.
Yeah. And then even Joel just kind of like.
Joel just leaves her. Like, he was so burnt up about Sammy. But like over here, now he's just so fixated on the goal right in front of him. Yeah. He can't even stop to mourn his very close comrade and friend.
I know. That's the thing.
They have the most history together.
That made me like, I kind of didn't know how to feel about that. That kind of like
disgusted.
Made me, I was just like,
gross.
What the fuck?
It was some Nightcrawler type
I didn't
shit.
expect him to like, just like stop everything and get down, but he didn't even like acknowledge her or, you know, cause like with Sammy, I was just like, you hear screaming and crying and kicking and you don't want Sammy to have died for nothing.
Yeah. But he's really mostly mad about the risk of him not getting this shot anymore because of now the political climate has changed again with the United States withdrawing from the fight.
So that was really fucked up. And I was just like, damn, I was like, look, Jesse got the shot. And then I said, we really just died for Jesse.
And I just, I don't like this ending for Lee because I like the transformation she was going through, and for her to just be like sort of sacrificed and tossed aside and not having that character live on with a new shifted perspective in the journalism world and in her perspective of the political climate, I felt like it just like completely deleted that potential for a new perspective. And now it's just a bunch of hungry people just going after a goal.
I don't even think there could have been a new perspective for her, honestly. It really felt like she was coming to an end. Like,
yeah, no, I think she was probably going to quit, but she might have done her own like line of photography work that was a more biased perspective, but still trying to tell the truth. She probably wouldn't have worked for a company anymore, but I think she still would have worked independently. I think that could have been a thing.
It could have, but would it reach anyone? Would it
probably
matter? I don't like. Just
It'll
given
reach
the climate
people.
of what was going on in that world and all, like we're saying.
Yeah, I think it would reach people.
We're talking about being neutral and, you know, people being biased. It's just like, I don't know. It really just felt like she's been just through too much that she wouldn't be able to be in that sort of environment. I'm like, what is she going to take pictures of flowers and stuff like that? I don't know.
No, why not?
Yeah, no one's going to read that shit.
No, that's not what I'm saying. She's not going to take photos of nature and shit. I think she would still get in the field somehow.
I don't think she would. I think us seeing her slow down and not be able to move, Joel having to drag her, like she really just like, I felt like that was it for her, like in this sort of environment, and she wouldn't be able to do that. That's why I'm just like, she's going to take pictures of flowers or like squirrels or some shit because she can't be in this environment anymore. It's too much for her now. She can't, she's no longer, her emotions are on, basically. I feel like it's like some Vampire Diaries type shit where they turn their emotions on and off or whatever. Her emotions are back on. She can't handle this anymore. She can't. And it's just like, her switch flipped on and Jesse's turned off.
Yeah.
That's what I saw. It was like an exchange. It's like a rite of passage for Jesse or whatever. It's like handing the mantle off, and that's why she had to die. I mean, she didn't have to, but I'm just like, she's going to be taking pictures of flowers over there while everybody's taking pictures of all this shit.
Well, I don't know what kind of mantle got passed off, but it's definitely not a productive one because they get the shot of the president in his last moments. Fucking Joel doesn't even ask a proper question, which makes me question what the hell kind of journalist are you if you don't even do an interview?
Did he have like a tape recorder or something?
He didn't have no video.
No.
He didn't have a cameraman with him. Nothing. I was just like, what are you going to record?
So we're just supposed to, that's another thing. We're like, okay, what if
they
we
just
do
take
get
photos.
this to be, someone does be like, okay, well, what happened with the president? You could say anything you fucking want to say.
Exactly.
You didn't get it on record or anything like that. The president just basically said, don't kill me, and asked for mercy. And then he's just like, that's good enough quote for me.
Yeah.
And then they shoot him, and that's it.
Yeah. So like he wasn't even really a journalist at all from the beginning up until the very end.
It's just like he was just like along for the ride because it's just like fucking hype and just crazy.
Which is, I have a huge problem with that aspect of the character. I don't know what the director was trying to do with him because not once is he documenting anything. And even up until this point, he doesn't have a tape recorder. He doesn't have a camera. He doesn't even care about doing an interview. He just wants to get the last words. And he's just like vicariously living through these soldiers who finally kill the president.
Yeah.
And then he's in the middle of the shot of one of the photos that Jesse takes of the soldiers standing over the president's body. And you see Joel right there looking back at the camera as if he's one of the Western Force members.
Yeah.
That's like one of the most biased looking photos you could ever take. So it's just like, okay, so you don't really participate in like neutral photojournalism. You basically just sided with somebody. You just wanted to see this president dead because what are you documenting right now? I don't see what goal you've achieved here. And I think that was like a huge kind of waste of the character because I liked him and he was interesting to watch. But he also just didn't make sense by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
He just became an animal.
I can see that. I felt like...
At least with Jessie, I saw that she achieved her goal.
Yeah.
She's a more professional, seasoned photographer
and
getting these shots.
And you have like the different personalities too. You have, Lee, who's cold and, just she's been through a lot. Then you have Joel, who like he's ready to get in action. Like he's someone you can like depend on to like get you in there and stuff. But he's not doing anything, like you said. He's not recording anything.
He ain't doing shit.
What is his purpose?
What are you doing here? What is your job, sir?
And I felt like he was also there, like for the development of Jessie's character too, like for her to like be a little more like carefree and to like really throw herself into the work and to not be scared, because it's just like we go into this line of work and it's just like you might die on it and stuff, and you have to like be willing to get that shot or whatever. But like well, now that you talk about it, it's just like, well, were you working, sir? Like
that just felt like a waste of a character, because what statement are you trying to make about journalism with his character? It doesn't say anything to me. And I felt like there was a lot of that going around in the movie where it didn't, at the end of the movie, I didn't feel like it said much about journalism or American politics, really. I felt like the movie stayed so neutral that I just felt like, I don't know what you're trying to warn us about, because I don't know what could cause a civil war. I could think of a couple of things. And the movie's not really trying to tell us how to prevent that, how to navigate that. It's just pure chaos,
which I was fine with. I was like, okay, well, it's not about that. It's not exactly about like how a civil war started, how to prevent it or anything like that. And I was like, I was okay with that. It was really the actors and like the characters that they had, how they executed that. That's what was drawing me in. That's what I was following, those moments of the trauma that Lee was experiencing, and Jessie and her character evolving and, becoming more like Lee. And then you have just like Joel, this chaos of Joel, and then like Sammy, like this voice of reason, and seeing how they travel amongst different people. Because they didn't always just run into like bad people. They came across this like, this camp area where there was just like a bunch of families. Camp. Yeah. With a bunch of families and stuff, who were like laughing and playing and taking care of each other, and they welcomed them in there, fed them and stuff, and they stayed the night there before they moved on. So
they didn't take no photos of that.
Right? So it's just like, I think it was just more like those moments. I don't know anything about, being a journalist and, taking photos like that and going across. And I know that people do that. People really, go to places where they're in the middle of a war and they're taking photos. That's how we get photos, or we get videos or whatever, recordings and stuff. Someone has to do it. Someone's doing it. It's just going to be manipulated by whoever they're selling it to or whoever they're working for, but someone's doing it. And it's just like, I felt like that was what the movie was mostly about in its like own messed up way. I don't know, like they're using America as like the backdrop kind of, but it's like this dystopian world in the future, and it's like it's a maybe. It feels very real. It hits close to home maybe, but I felt like it was just mostly about like these characters, and I had to like pull myself out of worrying about like what caused the Civil War, because there were a lot of scenes where like the Christmas like land scene, they were, I forget where they were driving through at that point, but they
with the two snipers.
Yeah, there was two snipers, and they were driving, and it looked like this like abandoned Christmas land, like hayride type looking place, and they were just like, this is weird. And then Joel's like, I'm gonna drive up a little bit. Next thing you know, sniper shot just comes out of
this idiot decides to drive more inward.
Yeah, because I thought he was just gonna gun it and get through there, but I'm just like, if the sniper's that good where he like kind of right in front of Joel's face, like right through the window. So they stop behind like this like abandoned hay truck ride thingy or whatever, and then they get out of the car, they get on the ground, and they're looking at this big house across the field, and there's someone in there just shooting at people because they see like the body of like a soldier in the middle of the road and all that stuff like that. And then they come and they see these two snipers like trying to like shoot whoever's in the house. And they're talking to them. Joel's questioning him, like he's just like, well, what's going on? Why is he shooting at you? Or like, why are you shooting at him? And they're just like, he's trying to shoot us. Like, like there didn't seem to be any real reason. We didn't know who was in the house. We didn't know why
stupid.
they were shooting at people driving by. Yeah. We didn't know who these two guys were and why they were they soldiers or like were they military?
They have experience, so
yeah, I was just like, who are they and why do they feel the need to take this person out? I mean, obviously because he was shooting at them, and if they made any moves, the guy, whoever was in the house, would just shoot them. But I felt like that was just like a moment of like, it didn't really matter as well too. Like that was like really just saying whoever, like you'll get killed by anybody, so you have to kill them back. And I was just like, okay, well that's just what's gonna keep happening in this movie. But then there was that scene where Lee was on the ground and like the camera like is close up on her, and you just see like just like the flowers and the grass blowing, and it was like a really beautiful shot. And I was just like, do we just wait till this is over? We just wait till the next scene. Like, you know, it's just like, how is Lee feeling in this moment? Like, how is Joel going to handle this situation? He's here talking to these guys. And then what is Jesse taking away from the situation? Because she's also taking photos of the guys trying to like shoot the person in the house. And there were just these moments where like visually it was just like, it was peaceful. It was just like, you kind of have to find the peace in these moments and stuff like that. It's like, what are these characters like thinking? What are they feeling as they journey through? It's like, it's not just about the goal of getting to meet the president and interview him. It was just like, just them as people. So I guess that's what I was focused on so much. Like even when Sammy was injured in the car and we were driving through like the woods and it was dark, there was just like some forest on fire. And it was so beautiful. And it was just like, these moments are the moments that they have to take away because he knows he's dying and stuff. But like you could see like him in awe at like, you know, the fucking embers flying in the air and everything being on fire. So I was just like, I don't know what's going on, but like I'm sticking with this group and seeing how they're doing and how they're handling it. And I felt like that was enough for me. But I also was just like on edge and just kind of disgusted with everything happening as well too. And I think the movie did a good job of like giving you a piece of everything, like that town where, you know, it was these quiet people pretending like nothing's going on around them, but they did have snipers on their roofs or whatever. You just didn't notice it at first. You know, then you have these guys here and how they're handling the situation. Then you have people who are just completely lawless and like doing whatever the fuck they want at this point. It was just like getting a little bit of all of like, this is how like a civil war could like work. This is how it could be like just you being out there, not even worrying about you being a journalist and trying to get a shot, you know? So that's what I took away from the movie. And I still felt sick just knowing I'm like, oh, a civil war. Okay, this is uncomfortable. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. No, I appreciate those moments, but I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I needed way more information about the world and politically, because it just makes no goddamn sense. It's like I'm fine with concepts of movies where they throw you in a situation and they don't explain stuff. That works for some movies, like Train to Busan. Don't need to know where the fuck the zombie infection originated from because we've seen billions of zombie movies. We know how this works. That's not the main point of the movie. That works fine. For something like Civil War, I feel like you just have way too many things that you need to explain because you need to tell us what the message is with this movie. Like, yeah, I feel thrilled going on this adventure with these characters, but that's not all the movie is. It's also has to have some sort of philosophical or political message because otherwise you're not going to do a war movie. Like with a war movie, you're going to make a comment about it. Are you pro-war? Are you anti-war? You can't just be like, this is what war could look like, and then that's it. I just feel like that just doesn't work. Especially if I'm trying to understand what these journalists are trying to come away with in terms of like how they approach journalism. I feel like at the end of the movie, I don't really understand what Joel is going to be like moving forward, or like even Jesse. Like, I feel like they're just going to do this until they get killed. And I don't know what to do with that information. I don't know what to do with characters that are just like mini nightcrawlers that now they just want to get the most intense shots ever and then just abandon the whole plot of what it means to be a journalist. Because journalism is a really complicated world to navigate. And there's a reason why people go into that field. And I feel like those reasons just get completely thrown out like later on in the movie. Like, I just feel like the movie doesn't make any firm comments on journalism and on American politics, especially since this guy's a British director. I don't think he fully understands the full ins and outs of American politics.
I don't think America understands.
No, this country understands. They just manipulate it against our advantage. But yeah, no, the movie just, as much as I kind of enjoyed and appreciated the experience, I just felt really hollow and more confused by the end of the movie about the whole thing. Like, even just like the way that the militaries are set up made no sense to me. I don't get how the military with the most territory could lose to like 2 different states on completely different parts of the country that are also divided by a different territory. It's just like there's like so many questions about this that just need answering. This is one of those movies where I feel like the world building needs a lot more fleshing out in order for me to understand what are you trying to say politically with this movie. Because I can't stand something being apolitical. Because if you're a person who's apolitical, that means you have the privilege of not caring about suffering for people. And I think that's just like not interesting and not really productive. So that's how I felt about the movie. I had, again, I appreciated like the journey with the characters and stuff, but in terms of like what it's trying to say, it's just very muddy and just doesn't seem to be very interested in actually telling you what the artist thinks about American politics or American journalism. Like, I'm just like on the total opposite end of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a well-crafted movie, but it's very messy, and it just like affected like me giving it a very high grading. Because otherwise, if it says something kind of powerful and sort of, you know, shifting with the philosophy, I feel like I could give it like a higher grade.
What are you grading it?
Do you want to get into grades now?
I mean, yeah, but I just wanted to know what you're grading it. I think I'm more just like a baked potato.
I'm giving it
like a 3 out of 5 type of thing.
Yeah, I'm giving it a super light baked potato. I almost feel like giving it a salty spud. Oh. Because that's how messy the movie is in terms of like the themes. It just nothing makes sense, and it's not really saying anything of consequence. And that is a huge problem for a movie that is trying to sell itself to be like a commentary on something, but it's not really commenting on anything. It's just giving you an experience, which that's fine. I appreciate the experience, but it's also got a responsibility to say something about the politics of this country. And it ultimately doesn't say anything.
I don't know. For me, it just says it's a shit show and no one knows what's going on. And people are just going and doing whatever they want. It's just lawless.
Yeah, that's like too. Yeah, that's.
I know
too
it's
easy.
it's too easy, and it's too.
Especially with like the world that we live in now, where we can understand what could cause a civil war, who would incite it. Because let's be real, it'd be the right wing nut jobs that would start it. They were the first ones to do it the first time around.
Yeah,
like it could happen again because of them. It just has to take a certain perfect condition that fucks with their money and their power. That's all it would take. So I
don't think they give much. I think all I read on was just that the president was going for, he was like basically it was a dictatorship at this point. It was like his third term,
but they don't explain
like why he did
I
that.
I assume that he had got a third term because the Civil War broke out, but they never explain the order of events.
Yeah, so I was just like
that was like another main issue. I was just like, I feel like that should be answered with no problem. But the movie's never interested in doing that. And that was like one of my worst fears going into a movie like this. It's like I'm afraid it's either like pro-military or it's just like trying to be like, I'm apolitical. I don't have an opinion on this shit. I'm just like, that's bullshit. Everyone has an opinion.
Yeah.
Like everyone does, whether it's shitty or not. So like, I don't know. I would ultimately give it like a very light baked potato because, again, it's a well-crafted movie. And I appreciated the journey that I went through, but I would give it a much higher grading if it took a stance that was like very interesting and kind of eye-opening. So I guess that's how I feel about it. So you're also feeling a baked potato?
Yeah, I'm giving it a baked potato. Like I said, the characters and the acting I feel like was really strong. They told enough of a story for themselves.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was so pulled in by them that I wasn't like concerning myself too much. Like, it was kind of something you just kind of had to ignore in the background. And it wasn't like in a way where I was just like, I really just got to ignore this. Oh, this is really frustrating. Like,
that was me.
That was you.
But
for me, it wasn't. I was like willing to accept that and like let that kind of just like move along in the background and stuff, because I was really invested in like the characters and how they were. So that's why I'm giving it, a baked potato. But yeah, I don't know if I could watch this again.
This is a one time for me.
Just because, like, you guys, like, I like the way I felt coming out, like, it was just like uneasy. And
yeah,
I mean, regardless of whatever side you're on, I do wonder though how different sides, what they took away from the movie. Like,
I saw some headline. I didn't read it. I saw a screenshot of a headline that A24 posted. It was like a screenshot of different headlines giving it, buzz for the movie.
Yeah.
And then one of the headlines said, something like men in red states giving Civil War an extra boost in the theaters. And I was just like, ew. So you're already mistaking it as like your weird male power fantasy.
Yeah. And that's why for me, I guess that's why I brought that up.
That's also why I hate the apoliticalness of it, because I feel like you're just going to encourage more people to think, oh man, we got to take up arms and take over the government, and for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I guess that's why maybe that's part of the unease that I felt coming out of it and stuff, because I'm just like, it just, like I said, it felt lawless, and it just felt like you were going through like a world of like, it was just like hate, basically. Like, it was just like unreasonable.
The country
like,
just swallowing itself.
Yeah, so I was just like, that little town that was pretending it didn't exist or whatever, and like nothing was going on. I mean, it seemed like a mostly like, white ass town or whatever, so they probably would have been fine, but it was just like, how long is that going to last?
Yeah.
You can't, because then if it, whatever the reason is in the movie that there is a civil war, once that's done being like the reason why they're fighting, they'll find another reason to keep fighting and keep killing people and taking over and doing whatever it is they're doing and stuff. So I think that's where it was just like, for me, the movie just really made me think about like all that stuff going on in the background around you and stuff, how you can't ignore it. Like all those bodies that we saw in that one shot, it's just like, well, why did they get killed? Like, were they lured here, or were they in their own area? And these
I wish I knew.
Yeah. So, I think it's just, it makes you think about a lot. It's just so broad.
Yeah, so that's all our thoughts on Civil War, guys. Have you checked this movie out? Let us know what side you're on. Are you part of California and Texas's weird team? Are you part of the New Peoples who they never once get fleshed out? They're just a map of New People's Army. I don't know who they are. Yeah. I guess New Humans. I don't know.
They're definitely getting shot by Todd.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, and let us know in the comments on our YouTube channel. Let us know in the polls on our Spotify. We're going to put up polls and questions. Let us know if you've seen this movie. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Most Potato Podcast. Remember to always like and subscribe and share our podcast. Make sure to hit the notification bell as well and do all that good stuff. And we'll make sure not to come after you during the Civil War.
Oh, okay.
All right, guys, that'll do it for us at the Most Potato Podcast. Thank you. And thank you, Jess, for joining me once again for another discussion.
Yeah. This one was stressful.
Yes, as it should have been.
Yeah, we're going to go into some lighter things. We're going to be watching Spy Family.
Spy Family's coming up, the new movie that's coming up, Code White. We're going to be talking some Bridgerton.
Yeah.
We're going to be reviewing seasons 1 and 2 in preparation for season 3.
Alvin's excited.
I'm actually kind of looking forward to it.
His favorite character is Anthony Bridgerton.
Fuck that fucking piece of shit, annoying ass piece of man. No. So we've got some fun stuff coming up for you guys. So stay tuned for that. And until next time, guys, we'll see you on the next one. Bye.